In this video, we're going to join the frame pieces together to start the assembly of the robot frame. So this is what we're going to get to by the end of this. So we're going to use our designs that we created earlier and make them into a frame. So I'm going to start with a new design, clicking the plus up in the top right hand corner here. Now we're not building a part anymore, we're actually building an assembly. So we can't use this one because this one doesn't allow us to bring parts into it. So we need an assembly. And because we actually want the ability to create more parts inside this design later, we actually want to use a hybrid, which is a mixture of this and this. So we've got a hybrid design, and then we're going to click create new. That gives us a new design. Now, the first thing we have to do before we actually do this is I made a small mistake in the sizing of the beams that you saved earlier. So I just need to go and modify these two particular beams. So the 25-inch beam, if I go into that, I need to check its length. So I can adjust its length by editing this extrude feature down here. So if I right click on that or two finger click on that and then click edit feature, I need this to be 25 inches plus 0.4. In the previous video I said that needed to be 25 inches plus 0.8. Got that wrong. So the 25 inch needs to be plus 0.4. And then you need to save any changes that you did to that. And the 27-inch version actually needs to be minus 0.4 of 27 inches. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to edit the extrude and make sure that reads 27 inches minus 0.4. If once you've made those two changes, then when we bring this all together, it'll come and be the right overall size at the end. This is to do with the fact we're using metric extrusion to build a frame that has to have hull spacings on inches. Right, now that I've adjusted those two so they're right, I can now bring my first piece into this design. So I can either drag this piece in by clicking and holding, dragging over there, or if that doesn't work, you can right click or two finger click and say insert into current design. That brings the piece into this particular design. Now, that's brought it in, the origin of the piece has come into the origin of the design. I want to keep my origin in the middle of my robot. So I don't want this piece to end up being here in the middle of the robot. I actually want it to be 13 inches over in this direction. So if I drag this over in this direction, it starts filling out the box on how far it wants to move. I want to move that over 13 and then inches, which is the little double quote mark. I'll zoom that out a little bit so I can see what it's doing, right? And then I want to click OK. Now what that's done is it's brought the piece in and it's grounded it. This little picture of the anchor here means it's grounded in our design. So the origin, if I turn the origin on, you can see the origin's still over here in the middle of our design. And I want that for, as we create parts in our robot later, it's handy to be able to mirror parts across the origin. That's why I wanted to keep the origin in the middle. Now that that piece has been brought in, it can't move around. It's locked in that design because of this anchoring feature here. All right. The next part I want to bring in is one of the 25-inch parts. So I'm going to insert that into my design. On a Windows PC, I can simply drag and drop it. Now in here, I can actually orientate and move this piece using all of these handles and arrows and squares on here. So to give you a run through of these, each one of these three circular things will rotate it in a different axis. This one will rotate it this way, kind of making sure that I go back to 0 here when I'm playing with it. This one will rotate it this way, and then this one will rotate it this way. Now I want this to be rotated around to 90 degrees. Sometimes it's better to type that because you think you've got it at 90, but in actual fact it's off. So I'm going to say type it in so I know that it's there in place. Then I need to drag this forward also 13 inches. So if I type in 13 and then add quote marks, that's brought it through and brought it into the right spot. Now, if I click OK at this point, we now have two parts in our design, our 27-inch part and our 25-inch part. Now, you'll notice I can't, if I try and grab this with a mouse, I can't move it. But if I grab this, it's just floating in free space. Even though I lined it up, it's not joined to this piece here. So what this video is about is how to join pieces together. So when you join pieces together, you need to pick a point on each piece that's going to end up being in the same spot. So for me, it's going to be that corner there is going to be joined to that corner there. But that corner can be joined in many different ways, in different orientations. So we have to think about sticking a little disc on this piece here, and then sticking a disc on this piece here. And then those two discs will come together. Right, so I'm going to press the home view just to reset my view around, and then I'm going to drag it up here and zoom in a little bit. Right, I'm going to press escape so nothing's selected, and now I'm going to go to the joint menu. So it's under assembly. Right, and you can see here there's a joint and it's got J next to it, which means I can use J in the future for starting this. When I do that, I get the joint dialog box that appears, and it's saying which is component 1 and whereabouts do you want it to snap, which is component 2, whereabouts do you want it to snap. The best practice is to join the piece that's floating to the piece that's still. So I need to put these little discs. Now you can see these little discs sort of appearing on different places around here, depending on where I'm hovering over at the time. And when you're trying to get a disc on this corner, it's quite difficult because that disc can jump around in many directions. So what we do, we use a feature of Fusion which allows us to lock to a particular face, so we can only get a disc facing on a particular face. So if I zoom in here a bit more with my scroll wheel and I hover over anywhere on this face on the end here, I can hold down the control key on a Windows PC or the command key on a Mac, and now it's only going to let me jump to joint origins that are on this face. So if I go up to this corner and I put that disc there, that piece is now grayed out. That means that I can't put any more joint origins on this because I can't join it to itself. So it's now saying, well, this is the only piece you can point the joint origin onto. I'm going to scroll my view around by holding Shift, pressing the center scroll wheel and pulling that around. Right. Now I want to get the joint origin on this corner up here. And again, it's a bit tricky unless you hover over the face, hold Control or Command, and then that locks it to that face, and now I can only select joint origins on that face, and I want that joint origin up there in the corner. And now that's brought that to that and locked it into place. So now I'm just going to press the house again to reset my view. And now this piece is locked, and I can't drag this piece either because it's got this joint thing here saying it's joined there. That's created a new thing in our document tree. You'll see now that I have relationships. Inside relationships, I have joints. Inside joints, I have a rigid joint, and that's that little symbol here. Each time we add a joint, you'll get a new one of these symbols on your diagram. So now that I've brought that 27 piece in, the 25 piece in, now I'm going to bring in another 27 to go to the other side. So dragging that into my design, I'm going to hide up the data panel over here so I have a bit more real estate. And I'm going to just, now that I'm going to use the joint command to line this up, I can just move this out roughly into the right spot because we're going to use the joints option to join this to this. Once it's roughly in the right spot, I'm going to click OK, and that's brought it into the design, but it's not constrained, it's floating. So to join that to here, I'm going to join that point to that point. I've got to put the disc on that face there, and then also the disc on that face on the end of there. So getting my view back around again, J for joint, that's the shortcut key. Hover over this face so that I can, and then hold the control key or the command key on a Mac. Then I can grab that corner up there. Okay, that's put the joint disc on there. Zoom out, Shift center scroll wheel, pan around, zoom in. And again, it's hard to select until we lock onto that face with our control. Click on there, and then that brings that piece into there. Okay, I'm happy with that joint, so I can click OK. Now I've got a 27-inch piece which is grounded, and then I've got my two other pieces that have been jointed in. So now I need to bring in another 25-inch piece to put across here. So bringing my data panel back, I'm going to drag a 25-inch piece in. I'm going to roughly orientate it to the right orientation, move it roughly out where it needs to be, click OK, and ultimately I'm going to want to join that corner there to that corner there. So I'm going to do a J for joint. I'm going to turn this view around, center scroll wheel across there, zoom in here until I hover over this face, hold Control to get that joint origin there. Zoom out with my scroll wheel, pan around, Shift center scroll wheel, pan with just the scroll wheel, zoom in, hover over this face, hold control to lock it to this face, click there, and then that's brought that piece into line. And once I click OK, I'll now reset my view with the house. You can now see I have 3 joints. I'm going to close up this data panel over here so I can see more with either that or that. You can see these 3 joint symbols here. We only need 3 joints because we've jointed this piece here, it can't move up here. So we don't need to join it up there. And it's actually not possible to join it up there because it's already jointed here. So I have 3 joints in here. Each one of those you can turn the visibility on and off with, or we can turn the visibility of all of the joints off by turning the eye off on the collection up there. That one was still selected when I turned them off. That's why you can still see it. But as soon as I click away, you're not going to be able to see it anymore. So that's created our frame, physically all joined together. I can't grab bits. I can't move them around. So it's all finished. Now I'm going to save that frame and I'm going to call that 27-inch square frame, and you're going to save that into your user folder inside your team folder down here. Click save. Now that we've got the frame, the next steps are going to be to bring the Swerve modules in, but that's going to be in the next video. We'll see you then.